Just after midnight on a Saturday in mid-September, the eye of Hurricane Ike is moving ashore. Many Southeast Texans chose to leave. Those who stayed are experiencing the fury, and it will only intensify. In the coming hours, this man will climb into an attic in hopes of saving his life. His Bridge City community will go underwater, and Hurricane Ike will rip apart the Bolivar Peninsula. The storm that began its life 13 days earlier, 3,000 miles away, has arrived in Southeast Texas. Hurricane Ike defied the odds. No storm before had traveled that far to strike the Texas coast so late in the season. At its peak, Ike had the highest measure of potential storm surge destruction of any other Atlantic hurricane, and it grew to become the most massive Atlantic storm on record.
You have a tremendous area of the Gulf covered by very strong winds, and this just pushed this tremendous storm surge onto the coast. That's what caused the water to rise sooner than people anticipated, which cut off their escape routes.
But when Hurricane Ike was just a whisper off the coast of Africa, Southeast Texans were fleeing another storm. On the Saturday before Labor Day, Southeast Texans evacuated in advance of Hurricane Gustav, scattering in all directions. Some medical patients were flown out. Those who did not have their own transportation boarded buses. Gustav makes landfall on Labor Day, September 1st, along the central Louisiana coast as a Category 2 hurricane. Almost no effects are felt in Southeast Texas. Some return the same day the storm hits, others the next day. 3,000 miles away, a new tropical system forms in the Atlantic Ocean. It's given a name, Ike.
My brother's taking my boys down, but my bags are still packed. So if we have to go again, we will.
And there was only one computer model out of all the ones we were looking at that showed it coming into the Gulf. So you kind of snickered at that model and said, you know, how can you really accept its solution when it's up against another 13 or 14 or saying it's going to head up to Florida and off the eastern seaboard? Well, that one model turned to be right, unfortunately for the Gulf of Mexico. So it was a rare event, and it's hard to forecast a record event, and that's what we had with Ike.
Less than a week after Southeast Texans returned from the evacuation, a new powerful hurricane defies predictions of striking the U.S. Atlantic seaboard. Instead, Ike continues a westward path into the Caribbean Sea. The storm, now at Category 4, hits Haiti, killing more than 100 people. It's 1,200 miles from the Galveston Bay and headed to the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes, I have. I've been paying attention to this new storm, Ike. I think it's, Ike. I think Hannah's gone on through. And, but I'm just going to watch it.
The hurricane is now on the minds of Southeast Texans. The storm ripped through Cuba, downgrading to a Category 1. But forecasters expect the storm to intensify once it emerges into the Gulf. And some, weary but cautious, are already preparing, contemplating their next move.
Yes, I'll definitely go. You know, I'm with everyone else spent hundreds, depending on the size of your family, upward to $1,000, and it does become a financial decision, but your safety is critical.
I'm just going to ride it out, as my dad used to say.
And then it just kind of moved across the entire length of the island, all the way from the east to the west. So the inner core of the hurricane was, severely disrupted. And by the time it moved over the Gulf, instead of trying to reestablish the inner core, tighten up, it just brought itself out into a wider expanse. So when it moved to the Gulf, and even throughout its lifetime in the Gulf, basically it was just a huge storm, which grew because of its interaction with Cuba.
Hurricane Ike enters the Gulf of Mexico 1 week after the mandatory evacuation for Gustav was lifted, and Southeast Texans are watching. The storm could hit anywhere along the Texas coast, but a devastating impact along the upper Texas coast seems unlikely.
Well, first I tell them that I'm a survivor of Katrina, and the best thing to do is not to take any chances.
Yeah, it's only moving at 8 miles an hour.
It's a massive storm. The state moves resources to South Texas.
The state has a big job trying to predict where a hurricane's going to hit, where they're going to move assets to. So it's sort of a shuffle game and figure out, where they need to be so they can get the citizens out of there if they have to.
And people are asking themselves if they would evacuate again.
If a mandatory evacuation is ordered and you choose to ignore that order, then you need to be prepared to be self-sustaining for at least a week to 10 days.
As long as this house is here, I'm going to be here. So hopefully it'll be a few more years.
It's a beautiful late summer day on the Bolivar Peninsula. The official 3-day forecast for Hurricane Ike moves the projected landfall northeast up the Texas coastline all day. It's 700 miles from Galveston Bay and intensifies to a Category 2 storm. People who live and own property here know that decades of buildup on Bolivar will see impact from the storm. The question is how much.
I'm still watching all the spaghetti forecasts and see which way it's going to go, and right now it's looking like I'm going to stay.
People here secure as much as they can and make plans to weather the storm.
Well, I'm going back home. And then it depends how bad it is there. We may leave there and go somewhere. So Deer Park, well, the elevation's enough, but it just if it came right through Galveston Bay or something, it'd raise heck up there for us too. So we would leave home.
Anxiety? Yeah, 3 years ago wasn't pleasant.
Reality is setting in. Shoppers are looking for generators and other supplies. The upper Texas coast is no longer on the fringes of the storm.
I'm thinking it's not going to come here. We're going to get some a little bit of wind and all, but all I can do is sit and watch the Weather Channel like the rest of us.
So we're kind of just sitting waiting. We have everything still packed from Gustav.
You know where I'm at right now. Any little thing, I'm already packed in the trunk. I'm ready to go.
Well, we were really nervous because we evacuated last time, so I figured it was going to come again, but since it's gone south, we're not as worried about it.
Thursday morning, it was the last thing anyone wanted to hear. Just 12 days after the mandatory evacuation for Hurricane Gustav, another is called for Hurricane Ike. Thousands of Southeast Texans hit the roads by whatever means possible. Others decide not to go.
Well, I'm not sitting in that traffic. I didn't evacuate for Gustav either. But, we know we were lucky about that.
I'm staying at home. I can't afford to go nowhere because I'm on limited income and my income doesn't go.
The 211 system, designed to evacuate those who can't go on their own, kicks into motion. Buses take people away to safety.
Last time I was very uncomfortable evacuating. We had to deal with a lot of things and different people, different attitudes, and I'm not really ready to do it again, but I'm gonna have to buckle up and do like I did last time, stay to myself.
Our Emergency Operations Center is virtually nonstop. We moved over from Gustav right into Ike and kept operational through the whole time period.
Military C-130s land again at the Southeast Texas Regional Airport to fly out medical patients. But people also flock to grocery stores.
I'm going to stay tonight.
Well, I'm kind of tired of kind of dealing with it. I think like a lot of other people, I think that's why you see the lines in the store like you do. It's tiresome, it's expensive.
Instead of packing up, they're stocking up and boarding up.
It's looking like it's going to be really, really bad, so we want to make sure everything stays safe. We have animals and we have a lot of valuables, and we just want to be safe.
And you're staying home?
We're going to stay. I think we're going to stay.
Hurricane Ike is now 500 miles from Galveston Bay. Before the night is through, Jefferson, Orange, Hardin, Tyler, Newton, and Jasper counties call for mandatory evacuations. Hardin County never does.
If it's worse than Rita, it's going to be a mess.
Sabine Pass, inundated by Hurricane Rita. is expected to see another significant storm surge. A woman and her child enjoy a few hours in the coastal community, waiting for traffic to clear out before leaving.
No, hope everyone stays safe and has a good trip and doesn't have to wait in traffic too long. So, bye.
The emergency management, the city of Groves has ordered a mandatory evacuation. Possible breach of the levees at Port Arthur will pull 8 to 10 foot of seawater in the city.
A Groves police officer drives the neighborhoods, issuing an ominous warning from the National Weather Service. Hurricane Ike could produce a 20-foot storm surge.
Possible breach of the levees at Port Arthur.
One Weather Service forecaster says people who fail to heed the warning may face certain death.
And one of the problems we had with Ike was the fact that officially, after it moved to the Gulf of Mexico, and even when it made landfall in Texas, it was not classified as a quote-unquote major hurricane because it was a very strong 2. The thing we kept trying to emphasize on television is the fact that it's only a Category 2 by 1 mile per hour. So effectively, it's still a 3. And more importantly, the surge is nothing like what a Category 2 or even a Category 3 hurricane should produce. It's more like a weak Category 4, if there's such a thing. I mean, Category 4, obviously, a weak one is still devastating. So we were talking about a rare storm surge with this event, and that's the thing we really try to focus in on. It really didn't matter where it struck along the upper Texas coast, if it hit Galveston, if it hit Freeport, if it hit Bolivar, it was still going to produce a devastating surge.
It's really changing around here right now, and as you can see, I mean, this water is headed towards Bridge City. There's a couple of brand new residential developments on the other side of the trees over there. So that's definitely something that people will be watching and need to be aware of. The officers were telling us it's amazing to them how many people are staying in Bridge City.
Now, a storm surge isn't a tidal wave. It's not a tsunami. It's just pushed water by wind, and it's rising up into the coastal areas and will eventually move on inland.
Ike is still more than 200 miles from Galveston Bay, but it's already changing the coastal landscape. Waves crash into the Galveston seawall.
It's taking a pretty serious beating. The storm is still a couple of hundred miles away, several hours away, and tropical force winds aren't anywhere near yet. But look at the way this seawall is taking a pounding. It's been here for more than a century. It was erected after the great storm of 1900. The deadliest.
Surge waters flood the road to Sabine Pass. In Beaumont, a city councilman canvasses his neighborhoods.
What you doing out here today, Odwin? I'm trying to get everybody on this side of Pine Street to higher ground. We expect the surge to have the bottoms underwater, 8 to 10 feet of water in the bottoms, and everything flooded on this side of Pine, so we're just trying to get the people to get out, to get to higher ground.
The water rises at Riverfront Park in downtown Beaumont. It's 20 miles from the Texas coast. The fate of Port Arthur hangs on a levee system to hold back Sabine Lake and the Gulf of Mexico. Started after Hurricane Carla 4 decades ago and finished in the 80s, it's designed to withstand a Category 3 storm surge. But Ike's projected surge could go over the levee, flooding the city to the rooftops. Time is running out.
Earlier this morning, we ran out of our state assets to evacuate people. We thought for a time that we weren't going to get any more. The police department in the city wound up obtaining 4 school buses from PAISD, and we now have those buses manned by cops, and we're getting every person out. And until the last man's gone, we'll stick around.
Well, I'll see you when we come back.
These last few evacuees board buses for a church in North Beaumont. Families are now scattered.
We kind of made plans of my mom, because she's special needs, to leave with her, but they kind of separated her. We don't know where she's at. Really? Yeah, actually, they came and got her in a stack caravan, and then they shipped her off somewhere. I don't know.
What's this whole process been like?
A lot of money. You know, it takes a lot of money to do this, and this is the second time. The first time nothing happened, and now I guess nobody wants to take a chance, so everybody's leaving.
15 miles to the northeast, Bridge City is surrounded by water on 3 sides with no levee protection. Many people here have left town, but not everyone.
The wind is going to be kind of bad anyway, but if we get the kind of water we think we're going to get, then it's going to be tough to get anybody out of here because we can't get medical ambulances to them or police to them or anything. We can't help them at all.
We're watching the water in both ditches over here. Nothing's moving. We had sticks out to measure it. And we had the dog, all the animals, and the families were all gone. My brother and his wife and the kids, they'd left, they evacuated. So we decided last minute we'd stay. We had a generator, gas, food, water. He had the generator, and I had plenty of food and water and stuff. And we decided, you know, we'll stay and protect the property and help anybody we need to help if we could.
Paul Fox decides to stay in Bridge City in his brother's house where he lives. His brother and family evacuated and would be in contact with Paul by cell phone for much of the day and night.
You had to make a choice, and we decided to stay. We thought we had everything we needed, and we thought we'd be okay.
The sun was shining. I mean, the storm is not anywhere close to us, but already, like I said, waters are coming up rapidly in areas that you just don't see. I mean, it was showing that water range. They looked like, you know, Colorado Rapids or something on the Colorado River. Water just pouring through there. I thought, this is not a good sign. I mean, the storm is still, you know, a long ways off yet, and we're already seeing really high surges already starting to show up.
Because I really don't think we're going to get a lot of major damage. I know we're going to get some water, and those that aren't prepared for it, I feel bad for them because they're going to lose stuff.
Seawater is now moving up the Neches River and out into the nearby marshes. It's moving towards Bridge City.
And as evening started to come in, I decided that just for safety precaution, I would put food and water and tools up in the attic. My brother had called and mentioned it too, and so I had my life jacket up there, and we had all the tools to break out onto the roof if we had to from out of the attic, and we had plenty of water up there, so we were pretty good up there.
Those who didn't leave now shelter in their homes or with groups in places like churches. The long wait begins.
Even 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening on Friday, you know, people were commenting in the newsroom, this is no big deal. It's just 30, 40 mile per hour winds right now, basically almost sneering at Ike and say, is this all you got? A lot of people just didn't understand this was a different type of storm that would just really ramp up very rapidly at landfall, and that's what happened. I mean, we saw a tremendous change in the character of the storm throughout southeast Texas by midnight. It was, you could tell we were really getting a bad storm at that point.
Power went out at 8:58 exactly. From there, I went next door. He had some candles lit. We were kind of watching the storm, drinking some water, having a little something to eat. We realized that our phones weren't all the way charged, and so what we did was I had an inverter, and we took it to his truck, and we got in his truck about 9:45, I'd say, and we charged his phone first because it actually has internet where we could watch the storm and see what it was doing. And so we charged his. And I plugged in mine to charge it, and I actually stepped out of the truck. Now, before we got in the truck, water was at the road, but it was just like a heavy rain water, you know, it wasn't like standing or anything. And I must have jumped out of the truck about, I'd say about 10:30. And when I did, water was at the back tire of the truck, and the truck was already all the way up against the garage. And that's when we knew we had problems.
Ready?
Yeah.
Make sure they can get it.
The power is going out all over the area. Transformers emit their eerie blue-green light as their last spark.
We're here on the seawall in Port Arthur, and the wind is very strong. I have no idea how strong this is, but I am holding on to everything I have not to fall over. If you can see, the water is basically on the rocks at this point. They're not flowing over like you've been seeing in Galveston, but it is very, very close.
The levee system that surrounds southern Jefferson County is holding back the surge, but it's early.
Within 20 minutes, it went from my feet to my knees, okay, within 20 minutes. It was walking from there to here was like trying to, if you've ever walked across a small rushing river, that's what it was like. The snakes and eels and everything were coming at you. It was interesting, little fish.
My concern was I knew that there were a number of people that stayed in Port Arthur. I don't know what the estimates are. I mean, I've talked to some people, and they think maybe upwards of 40 to 50% of the people in Port Arthur stayed, and including mid-county. And those people would have been in severe jeopardy. I mean, because you look at Port Arthur, sections of the city are only 1 or 2 feet above sea level. You overtop, you've got a swimming pool the deep end type sitting in your yard. You know, you have a life-threatening situation, and we would have had a similar Katrina type flood in Port Arthur that we had in New Orleans.
We went from in his pickup truck charging our phones to finding out the water was that high to I'm going in here trying to move some stuff to higher ground, and I moved stuff into here, and he's moving stuff in his house to higher ground, and we met over to here, and this is from where I called the sheriff's department, was from in here. And at that time the water was about right here when they told me that there was another 6 foot of water coming at me.
Outside the levee, the storm surge creeps out of the darkness and onto the road at the foot of the Veterans Memorial Bridge. Across the river is Bridge City, and the water is coming.
When that water started rising, it took all gas tanks and just flipped them over, and there was nothing but gas in the water. I mean, you could smell the fumes up there. You wouldn't even want to light a match for anything. You're afraid, if we don't drown, we may, house may burn down. And you could hear the popping of the transformers and stuff. Or, well, I say that, I'm not sure the power had gone out, so I don't know what exactly we were hearing.
Many people are going to be without power.
Yeah, those nice comforts of AC might be disappearing.
Oh, it's so humid out. You really feel that. Anytime that you spend some time outside, it's just wet, and that was a good gust there.
Can you show me where you went in the attic?
Paul Fox evacuated for Hurricane Rita 3 years ago, only to come back and find his home damaged and unlivable.
I think there's still stuff up there. I don't know, we may have pulled it down now.
This time he's staying, and the water is rising all around him.
This is where I fell through the roof. It's too dark now up there. This is...
And he only has one option. He and his next-door neighbor will go into the attic of this Bridge City home.
And I jumped out of this, life jacket on, went through the front door and came around, opened the garage door. And he grabbed some supplies and dogs. We took the dogs, the ones we could get a hold of. We threw them up in the attic along with those kittens that are running around here. And the food and everything was already up there, but we made our way up there, and he got on the ladder, and I was able to pull that garage door closed just in case, a bigger wave or something came through. I mean, not that it was doing much good, the house is full of water, but, at least it would be a breaker.
Wow, the rain's coming sideways.
A small group rides out the storm at a Beaumont business. It's a rare opportunity to experience the fury of a hurricane. In the coming hours, Ike turns frightening and dangerous.
Did you get that?
It is just after 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, and we're outside of Port Arthur. As you can see by the exit there, we're at Staff Sergeant Lucian Adams Drive. And the winds, I have no idea how high the winds are. It seems to come in waves. But you can see over here by these trees, I don't know if the camera can see, might give you an idea of what the winds are like. We passed Central Mall a while ago. We didn't even realize that it was Central Mall because it's so dark, all of the power is out. In fact, there was no power all the way from Beaumont to Port Arthur. Everything was dark. It was just hard to tell where we were.
The eye of Hurricane Ike is now just 10 miles from moving ashore in the Galveston Bay. Winds are reaching dangerous speeds. If the surge overtops the levee in Port Arthur, it will happen in the next few hours as the wind shifts out of the south, pushing in the ocean.
Hey, it's still not coming around the southeast. There's still mainly an easterly flow there. There's
Wow.
a good burst of wind.
There's some rattling going on there.
No, it was actually the wind blowing was a blessing because it kept it from being 150 degrees up there.
We're in Port Arthur. We're right at a railroad crossing, and I don't know if you can see behind me, but it shows 2 feet. Since we've been here, it has risen several inches already. The wind is blowing, the water is flying, and the water tastes like salt water.
You can hear the roof peeling and the wind blowing and just the rain and rain and rain. And 2 o'clock was pretty bad. None of us could sleep all night. We were just laying there.
Of course, one of the problems again, and I don't know what it is about these storms, they seem to always hit at night. At least they have for us locally. We've had Rita at night. We had Umberto at night. Edward was partially at night. Of course, it's just a tropical storm. Of course, this one, absolutely at night again. So it does make it extremely difficult, it seemed like at night, to determine what's going on because it's total blackness. All power is out and there's no natural lighting, obviously. So you do depend on people to call in, and we did get some very disturbing calls through the night from people that were really in harm's way.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, the main roads in Bridge City are still passable.
You ought to be able to catch that.
But the wind is ripping through the city. What you don't see is happening in the darkness in the neighborhoods. Bridge City is filling up with water.
Had a dryer right here, and we were actually measuring the water by how high it got up on the dryer by door handles. And the top of the door, top of the dryer's gone. Okay. You can see the water line actually leveled off about 5.5 feet out here, but one time it was about 7.5 feet.
We've gotten some pretty strong winds, as you can imagine now, almost 99 to 100 miles an hour in some spots.
Yeah.
And to that end, we have now lost Time Warner Cable and some of our cable providers. We expected that to happen. The good news is, if you're listening to us at 87.7 FM, or if you're watching on internet, you're streaming the internet signal, you can still see us.
KFDM 6 News streams over the internet throughout the night. The webcast reach evacuees and anyone with a connection to Southeast Texas.
We have just received what I consider to be a very worrisome email that says, we lost contact with our family in Bridge City. Last word, 6 feet in the house north of 87 on Ferry Drive.
Yeah, that's very bad, yeah.
They, in turn, relay information to and from family and friends riding out the storm.
Yeah, if you are in contact with somebody in Bridge City or in Orange, and you can share some information with us this morning, we'd love to have it. It's news@kfdm.com. It's pretty simple.
The reach is worldwide.
Thanks so much for streaming. My family and I live in Russia, but we have family in Southeast Texas. Your newscasts are helping us to stay in touch with home. We've had emails telling us they were watching in Hilo, Hawaii, from Canada, Tempe, Arizona.
I saw one from
Montana.
Saudi Arabia.
We had one from Saudi Arabia. So it's amazing at the kind of coverage we can get. And people just want to know what's happening in my hometown. Numerous people in Orange County stranded on rooftops.
See, that's that Bridge City area, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
a picture is emerging. Bridge City is going underwater.
We are watching via internet. Thank you for keeping us current. Our grandfather, R.L. Woodward, has had to go into his attic. He had 4 feet of water in his house, and he had to get in his attic. We told him to sit tight until daybreak.
Yeah, we're getting more and more confirmation. We have a serious situation over there.
I'm not sure if we have the person on the phone yet, but you saw us read the email about my best friend is in her attic, and her house is 4 feet underwater. Off Ferry Drive in Bridge City, and we have gotten in touch with, is it Christy Wright? Christy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And we got a phone call from Bridge City. And it was a lady calling and was saying, I'm in my attic with my family and my neighbors because water is rising into our house, and it's 4 or 5 feet deep in the lower levels, and we're afraid it's going to continue to rise. You know, you could sense the panic in her voice.
We have children up here. We need help desperately.
Yes. Is the water still rising? Can you tell?
Yeah. Is the water still rising? Yeah, the water's still rising, and we're about 4 feet.
It looks like one of those vents out of the old air conditioner where they tied the streamers on to show you that it was blowing.
Yeah, what's so interesting about that, we did a story on that.
Sure.
They did it for Gustav. They went and slit all these vinyl signs to keep them from actually being sails and catching the structure and pulling the whole sign down. Little did they know they were also doing it for Ike.
The light of day Saturday morning. More rain and wind, but people are coming out.
What are you doing?
Securing my house.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I had to check on my dad, sister, and my wife and the baby are at the hospital at St. East. I'm gonna run up there.
How you doing?
Good.
How's it riding in the rain?
Man, I've had 2 hurricanes at that house. No problems.
and we can now see what people could only describe through the long night. Nothing but water as far as you can see into Bridge City.
How far down this road could you get?
To that high rise right there, and then it's flooded all the way down there the rest of the way, so we just turned around.
The high rise, just that little high spot of land?
That little high spot right there, it's about 60 feet, and that's about it.
Wow.
So it's flooded the rest of the way in.
Those who rode out the storm are now looking for a way out.
And we can only be hopeful that these people figured out some way, you know, to either get to higher ground, to get up into the attic or whatever.
Well, you know, the years ago, and they recommended, you know, if you want to stay for a hurricane in the storm surge area, be sure and carry an axe with you.
That's right.
Because you might end up in the attic, have to chop your way out.
We just were watching the water line from the attic with a flashlight, and when it got to about the second from the top step all the way up, that's when we decided it was 8:30 in the morning that we had to do something, and that's where we came out of the attic through the roof. Well, there's a board over it now, but you can pretty much figure out where it was. Luckily, we had the American flag with us, and we stuck the American flag in the hole and duct taped it up there to show that we were here. Yeah, this is the flag. It made it through the storm. See the duct tape on it? That's where it was duct taped up in there.
If you're inside your house and you simply can't get out and you want to leave, put something out to let us know if we pass by. Be on the lookout for us. We're going to be driving the neighborhoods basically in boats at this point in the affected areas, trying to find people who want to get out.
It's hard to picture this, I know, but if you look around in 360 degrees, the only thing that you can see in this spot right here were rooftops and what looked like a giant lake.
The eye of Hurricane Ike has now moved 90 miles inland, and the back half of the storm has pushed ocean water out of Sabine Lake and up the Natchez and Sabine rivers. And now water is flowing into the city of Orange.
At landfall, the winds were basically easterly along the coast, and then as it moved inland to our west, the winds turned to a more southerly direction. That's when the surge we knew would really come in, because you had the tremendous onshore wind flow at that time, and that's exactly what happened. I think the peak surges were close to daylight.
We're here in Orange on 16th Street, where what's behind me is a lot of water that's coming from both storm surge and a breach in a levee in downtown Orange.
Anybody that's familiar with what occurred in Rita, it's totally different. Okay, we have very few trees down. Okay, we have very few power lines or poles down. What we have is a lot of water. Sabine River always drains, and now it has nowhere to drain, so it's starting to back up. The river has gotten up to the point where it's actually overtopping the levee that goes down beside the river.
A surreal image, fire and water. Orange firefighters work to save flooded houses. One more emergency among so many.
You can get back with me in about an hour. I might be able to help you out.
No one knows how many people are trapped in houses, but rescuers are looking.
We got people down in the cove down there trying to get out. They're sitting on rooftops trying to get out. We're going back and get a boat and go back.
Firefighters and volunteers search the neighborhoods in Bridge City and in Orange with dump trucks and boats, taking out anyone they find.
It was a lot more intense than I thought it would be. It was really, really scary.
A few hours later, by this time our phones are dead. We have no idea what time it is. We popped back through. It's still raining on and off. Two guys in a boat come down the street and said they'd be back. So the Coast Guard was flying around. They actually dropped over the top of us and looked down on us, and then they flew off. So we didn't know it was up there. Finally, those guys in the boat came back. From there, they actually took us down the street to higher ground, where we walked over to the Walmart and was able to make some phone calls. The payphone worked.
And our concern not only was for Bridge City at that point, we were worried about the Port Arthur levee system. Very close call. I mean, I've seen some of the pictures in the aftermath, the debris line right up on top of the road, right on, very close to the top of the seawall. So it was almost a complete disaster there.
The wind was started really here blowing about 1:30, and it hadn't quit yet. But I'm really glad the wind stopped blowing, because it was really, the wind was bad, and we was kind of worried about the surge, and it looks like the levee did real good.
This is what the levee held back. On this side, houses outside the levee flooded.
Yeah, a lot of these houses, they won't ever be rebuilt again.
On the other side, just wind debris.
This was really the first test of the levee system. As you can see, it really tested out real good. So, but now you know when to leave. If it's anything over a Category 3, I wouldn't be here because it's going to go over the levee.
Many of God's creatures here in Port Acres fled in advance of the surge. Some could not retreat with it fast enough. By midday Saturday, Hurricane Ike is well inland, 150 miles, and has downgraded to a tropical storm. But the water here along Taylor's Bayou in West Jefferson County is rising, and people in LaBelle are getting out. The coastal storm surge is receding slowly, and the water draining downstream to the ocean has no place to go. In a community 20 miles from the coast, the flooding comes as a shock.
We checked our elevation, and we thought our elevation was all right, and we just didn't have any idea that it would come up so fast too. It was amazing how fast it suddenly started coming.
It is a concept. Concept I've talked about for a long time. You know, we show the surge maps. We show them every preseason, you know, during our show. This is what will happen in Category 1. This is, you know, and people say, oh, pretty colors, neat maps. This isn't reality. This is like a video game show. You know, this stuff can happen. Now, it's come home to roost. Everybody can see that it really can happen.
And the rain from Hurricane Ike has subsided, but as you can see, the wind is still pretty strong out here. Now we're on Highway 87, the road that leads to Sabine Pass.
Water and debris blocks roads into areas that took the full brunt of the storm surge. Sabine Pass is cut off, and it would be 2 days before we would see what happened to the beach communities on the Bolivar Peninsula.
And you actually live on this property. Talk to me a little bit about the damage that we've seen.
It has been blowing all night, really strong. Sometime like 40, 50, 60. I think it went to 100-mile-per-hour wind. This place has been known to be a strong building structure.
In the areas between Beaumont and Galveston, the winds of Ike were devastating.
I live out in western Jefferson County, north of Winnie. Rita was not the storm that Ike was. Ike was a bigger disaster for us. We had more wind. We had, of course, the surge to be dealt with in Chambers County, but just considering wind alone, we had far more wind damage. I mean, it wasn't even close to what we had during Rita. Now, if you go further east, get away from the eye, which moved through Galveston Bay, you know, Beaumont didn't see as much wind. You know, Mid-County did. In Orange, you know, there wasn't a lot of real wind damage in Orange. It was the storm surge did it. So there were two different animals here.
But otherwise, the wind damage is widespread but scattered.
We were scared, actually. We thought that we had a damage like that to our apartment as well. But walked around the corner, looked at our apartment, everything's okay.
Some trees and power lines toppled, but many held. Power is out everywhere. The first night after the storm, even the most familiar routes are unrecognizable, without the familiar landmarks of light to guide the way.
All the way up to the pink shirt, okay?
The first day after the storm, Southeast Texans scramble for supplies.
We've got businesses and things that we can't afford to leave, and it doesn't look like there's any assistance going to be given to us, so we're going to have to just make it ourselves.
Some stores open, and lines form at gas stations.
It's kind of overwhelming because of everything. This is my first time staying. It's just a lot going on, and I'm more so for my babies than me.
Stress and frustration flare.
It's a little tense back there, but you know, generally speaking, people are being pretty good, pretty
Were you here when the fight broke out, the punching?
Which fight was that?
Oh my gosh, how many have you seen?
There were a few little incidences.
Sitting on empty.
Really? You about to run out?
About to run out.
But the power comes on here in Lumberton, and people wait patiently for gas. A fuel truck shows up to resupply. Most want gas for generators. They stayed for the storm. The weather turns unseasonably cool, and they have no plans to leave.
Yeah, I had two huge acorn trees, barely missed my house.
We was in a brick house, and it shook that house. You know, I mean,
man.
So you feel like it's pretty squared away if you get
Yeah,
gas?
we was ready this time. Last time we was kind of caught off guard, but this time we were ready. So that helped a lot.
Do you mind waiting in line? Is this
No, we learned patience the last time. So now, you know, we was aggravated last time, but now, you know, you got to expect it. So just go with it, and if you need it bad enough, you'll wait.
I think people were prepared. I think they already had their hurricane supplies because some of them had already gotten them for Gustav. People still had their generators ready to go. I mean, there's a lot more people have generators than what we had in 2005. I didn't know many people had generators, but now, you know, a lot of people have whole house generators. I mean, they're loaded to bear to go through a storm, so they know the drill pretty much. But I think after this storm, though, and particularly in areas south of Interstate 10, there's going to be a much healthier respect for hurricanes from the storm surge.
Utility trucks roll into southeast Texas. Energy brings in 14,000 Ike busters to restore the power. The storm knocked out almost all of Energy's 395,000 customers. The company estimates power restoration could take a month.
But we are going to be embedded here with the community.
The head of Homeland Security arrives in southeast Texas and promises help is on the way. Elected officials warn evacuees wanting to return to wait.
Number two, when you get here, your life is not going to have the quality that it is where you are now.
As stores open up, they fear too many people too soon will overwhelm water and sewer systems still running on generator power.
Don't come back in and open your business. We are under mandatory evacuation. We do not have the infrastructure to support you.
He's got my radio, so I don't have no way to get in touch with him. All right.
Some who stayed won out. A FEMA rescue team searches Sabine Pass and only finds a few who need help.
It's devastating for this community. As you can see, everything's wiped out.
The surge inundated the community, wiping out some structures and flooding many more. Cows struggle to maintain the only high ground they could find. In Bridge City, the water is receding and people are returning to see what's left.
I was trying to clean up. I was like, it's so nasty in there. I wanted to pick up my furniture and put it back like it's supposed to be. And
there is little here to sustain anyone.
We sat up there for about 5 hours.
Paul Fox, rescued from his brother's rooftop, leaves southeast Texas.
Bridge City Fire and Rescue came through in large dump trucks, and we spent about an hour driving around the city of Bridge City trying to find anybody else that may be stranded in their houses who had called in. We helped them. And from there, I ended up in a church in Orange and a shelter in San Antonio.
And the rescues continue.
Tell us what was going on. What were you guys thinking?
It was rough. That's all I can really say. It was rough and it was scary.
About 20,000 people in Galveston decided to ride out the storm. It's estimated crews rescued close to 2,000 people on the island.
I mean, we'll certainly survey damage as we're out there and report that back up the chain of command, but survivors are actually our main focus today.
Texas Parks and Wildlife game wardens have managed to make it onto the Bolivar Peninsula. They bring in supplies and bring out information.
What did I see? I saw the town of Gilcrest that wasn't there anymore. It's gone. There was probably 100+ houses, and now there's like 5 left, just wiped clean.
A lot of destruction, a lot of empty slabs, having to really search to figure out where you were at because you can't tell from, I couldn't find my own house.
And those who couldn't make it off the peninsula are thankful to be alive.
Some of our local firemen came out and helped, but majority, there was about 8 of us had to swim through the marsh to get out.
But we are yet to see what they've seen. That will come the next day.